everyone, and welcome to this episode of Waynesboro at Work, a podcast where we interview business leaders and entrepreneurs to learn about the origin stories of their business, the passion that they have for their work, and a lot of things in between. So today I'm really excited to be joined by Mary Catherine Froelich, who is the owner of Stone Soup Books. Mary Catherine, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for asking me.
Well, and for those of you watching on YouTube, you can see the beautiful array of books behind Mary Catherine. For those of you listening, just imagine a beautiful library with lots of colored books, and that is what she is sitting in front of. So true to the name, Stone Soup Books, she is living up to that part of things. So Mary Catherine, tell us about Stone Soup Books. For people that don't know about it, how would you explain your store?
I would probably, I tell stories, so I would probably start at the beginning.
Okay.
Stone Soup Books was a bookstore cafe for about 7 years on the top of where downtown just starts, in a little old house. And we remodeled it and had a cafe with amazing food, a chef. We had music on Friday nights, just an experience. It was a gathering space.
Nice.
That closed about, I want to say now, 6 years ago.
Okay.
And in the interim, I continued to do the things that kind of brought me to do that. I continued to be a bookseller, to bring conversation, author events to places like breweries, to work for the farmers. JMD Farm was the farm that was supplying us with our locally sourced meat products. So beef, pork that we use in our soups. Also any vegetables. They provided us with so many vegetables. So we were like on that front edge of local. Yes. And also our mission was really about bringing people together to appreciate all that we had already here, which is where the name came from. Stone Soup, which is making things out of what you have. It's very community based. So a pandemic hit. Yes. And all of the places. I was actually working at the farm that had supplied us with these food. I was growing. So the farm owners, Jenny Driver and Michelle Marston, Millard Driver and Frida Driver, they said, Jenny kind of proposed, oh, you've closed the store. We need a farm market manager. So I was considering yoga and other types of work. Yes. And I decided, well, you know what? This is the kind of shift that I need. And so I took on their management of their farm produce growing for CSAs and for farm market and that kind of thing. So I did that along with selling books online on all the antiquarian books that you see, and some of the new books that I was doing with WMRA. They have a Books and Brews program that we interview authors in breweries and have a community conversation. And this is, it's such a long story. I'm just, this is what brings me to being a bookseller, is because I love story. Yes. So during pandemic, all of this was shifting. I was considering reopening sort of in a retail space, but still providing the services that I did. And everything shut down everywhere. And the farm, we went from growing all kinds of Easter lilies and things for churches and all the celebrations that we would have, to full on nonstop food production. We put everything into food production. And we had an amazing 50 member CSA that summer. Wow. We were providing winter vegetables and all of those types of things. In the meantime, I was still kind of seeking, because I knew this part was still speaking loudly. And I found, driving around and doing a little soul searching and trying to figure out how to be a bookseller in the world that we are in. Yes. And I found this amazing place in downtown Waynesboro, which I love Waynesboro. It has so much story and so much green space. And this space is an old industrial building. It was in the area that did a lot of just kind of gearhead type things, making things, warehouses. In fact, it's built at an angle because the railroad used to go behind the building, and they have a loading dock that they would load right into into the car. So it's an angled building, which I love because that also is unique and different. And it was a little dilapidated. There were broken windows. So that summer of pandemic, we spent just taking it down to its bones and scraping and painting and put friends to work with masks on for a real reason. Yes. So we wouldn't inhale anything. And it is an amazing space. It's hard to find, even though we're in the center of downtown Waynesboro. We're on Race Avenue, and that's a new street. So it's just before you hit the river. And our building has a mural on it of 3 Korean women done by Kimchi Juice.
Lovely.
So it's a beautiful, identifiable building. And now, in the last, just November, the Blue Ridge Children's Museum, which had plans to occupy a building that's on our same street here, put in their actual footprint as the natural play space for children. So there's an entire play space next to us. It's becoming more identifiable. So people can find us. Well, that's how I ended up here.
Okay. All right. Well, so many points to touch on there. So we'll get to all of those. I guess my very next question is, you said that you love, story and storytelling. Where did that originate for you?
So I grew up in a small town in Burlington, Iowa, on the Mississippi River. And Iowa is not known on the East Coast very well. You either think suddenly potatoes. I had people ask that. And I will say this, the public library was the core to everything from where I went from my little town to so many other places. Fantasy, history, biographies, all kinds of traveling that I did through books. And that was truly what I've been a reader all my life. And the library allowed me to travel everywhere, even though I was there landlocked right on the Mississippi River. Yes. And that's really what started my love of story. Plus my family, the books were always kind of an important part of our lives. My grandfather was a printer. Oh, wow. My folks were always read to us. I grew up in an old home that was rickety and sort of scary, and had a very vibrant imagination. I think I was seeing ghosts, and I would calm myself at night by reading Little House on the Prairie. It was so it was like you felt you were home, you were safe. It was wonderful. I have a set right now of those old, hardcover Little House on the Prairie. It makes me think of that. But books have become, and every time I would make an important change, it would be based on what I had picked up, or somebody had recommended a book. Yes. And I would read it, and it would be so connecting. Yes. I would hear that I wasn't alone in something I thought or felt, or it would also be so entertaining where you would just, during pandemic, my goodness, I kind of revisited some classics, and I had the most ugliest cover book I've ever seen. And I thought, heavens, because I didn't pick it. The library put it in a bag, and they had it for me. And it was the worst cover, but it was the best story. Yeah. It was so good. And so get lost in story. Story it can take us away. It can also kind of reinforce us that through time and space, we have experienced this with other people. Right. I had a year I spent with Rumi, and I, reading one passage of Rumi, and there's a book, A Year with Rumi. Mm-hmm. And you think this guy was living 500 years ago, and we've had this year together. It feels sort of interesting. We're having these conversations. So it's really a way we can kind of time travel and influence and show people new ways. Right. Mm-hmm.
Yes, I absolutely relate to so much of what you said. I did not grow up in Iowa, but my parents read to me even before I was born, mm-hmm. and just growing up with books. And like you said, it was a way to travel to other places, to meet other types of people. And I always say, there are some books that I consider friends, because I can remember when I first read the book, and then like if something's happening in life, I might revisit that particular book. And I mean, it's just, I can't even explain the impact that books have had in my life. So I definitely relate to everything you're saying there. So you mentioned the pandemic, and clearly, we're not out of that quite yet. But I just want to get a sense, you're going along, you're doing your thing, and then the pandemic hits.
Mhm.
And you're a business owner, and with that comes kind of a leadership role in the community. What was that like for you, not just from a business perspective, but just as a person? What was dealing with that like?
I think that's a great question. And I think we're still unwrapping it. I think we're going to be unwrapping that question for a long time.
Yeah.
And I think by not talking about it, we put that off a little bit further. But I think when it hit and all of our events, author events, were shut down, I was in the middle of I was going to do book selling for the Festival of the Book in Charlottesville. And I had probably 10 young adult authors that I had books ordered in for, and that was immediate, that was canceled. So it was an immediate, oh gosh, I've got to ship all these books back. This is all done. We're done. And then the fear and all the other things around how do you do this? But as you walk through that process, and as you're outside and you're trying to kind of get energy from other spaces and try to refuel, you have to listen, and you have to ask people and keep listening and keep walking, and then determine. And for me, it was a determination of, hey, now is an opportunity to really dig back in, to put deeper roots in, to be more of that, to be a place where it continues. And we need new stories as we combat the racism, the issues that we're boiling over with. We need a place where those stories come out, and that there's dialogue and not polarized walls, and that's what I think booksellers and books are very important for, and our communities need those places. So that's what really pushed me to have a retail space, to dig in, to actually, put on the mask and paint and, scrape floors and pull vines off things and repair windows and all of that. It was really very constructive to be a part of the construction. And then to put things back together. And it's been a great unfolding. It's confusing because people knew us before as a bookstore cafe. And we had a whole new logo and a website designed by the JMU students. I'm going to give them a big pitch. Nice. Biz Lab. They were fantastic. And I told them, I said, one of the things we'll confront is somebody will want to have a sandwich here, and they'll want, the things that we used to be. And we're not that. We're new, just like we're not going back to normal. We're in new places. This is a new time. And so at the end of our Stone Soup books, we kept the name, and we put at the South River, because that's critical and important to what our role is here. We are here. We are here. We are in this place, in this time. We are right outside the window here. I see the South River. There's the Greenway Walk. So I can visit it all the time. I can read a book at the river, and I kayak the river. So I love the river, and I have visions of like bringing my kayak here and just falling out. And I've done it with authors, actually. So at the river is also important because it kind of, it speaks to how important the nature and the natural world is to our daily lives. That's very important to what we have here. My work on the farm, which continued some of that. For me, our emphasis is, the natural world, exploring it, for children, seeing what is a tree. How do I, my grandson wants to, learn how to climb a tree. And we have little books on, finding things while you're out there, seeing things, just taking a little time, and gardens and all of those types of things. So our new book focus is a lot of that, sustainable living and nature books, and books about Waynesboro and where we're at. And we also, of course, do with the other piece, which is really important and part of our name of Stone Soup. And it's been a fun thing. And it really came about because of pandemic. We have a rescued book program. So the rescued books are books that are our friends that we need to let go of, that we have to, either we're moving, I have, people who've died. There's something about it that these were my father's books. These were my mother's books. These were my books. And I don't want them just to get dumped out or put into a trash can. So we have a bin out back that we dedicated in April, and it was put together by a local farmer, Wild Altar Farmstead. They put this bin together for us out of recycled materials, and people can put their books in there all the time, and they can specify whether they want to do it as consignment. We'll put all of these books online. We put them on Amazon, Biblio, Abe Books, and we sell them. And when we sell them, we send them a check. And I always tell people, it's going to be like a surprise. It might be 7 years from now. It might be ice cream money, but it's fun. And you know that they have found a new home with somebody who appreciates them as much as you appreciate them. Right. And the other piece about the rescue book is we also have nonprofits. And that's how it started. Was I reached out to the libraries and I said, you're not doing your library sales. You can't. But how about we come in and we get those books and we assess them and we give you back a big chunk of the proceeds. So we work with a number of nonprofits now. You can specify on rescued books that you want it to donate to Friends of Augusta Library or Friends of Waynesboro, or Renewing Homes is another nonprofit we work with, and Habitat, and the Organic Farmers Association. So, and a local church. So we've got, since about a year and a few months, we've donated over $2,100 to these partner nonprofits. And it makes me so happy. That's rescued books doing work for nonprofits in our community and for people if they want to have a little bit of ice cream money or consignment style money. It's really been a amazing program. And I'm so excited about that.
That is so exciting. And like you said, I know myself and other book lovers, that is a conundrum that you come to, because if you are going to be letting go of some books, where to take them, and you end up caring about a lot of these books. So I love that so much. So anybody can come, put their books in the bin, and then specify if they want that to be donated or they want the check to come to them. Is that how that works?
Yeah, there's a little box. They check whether they want a consignment, and then I have a conversation with them so that they understand what that means. Yeah. And then, and I mean, there's people I've had on consignment with us for 15 years. So they've been receiving, and suddenly sometimes they've only given me a few books. The more books you give, obviously, sometimes, and the more that they're unusual or, but it doesn't matter. All books, we take them all. The only thing, when people ask me, what don't you take? And I say, if it's moldy, if there's mold or it's been heavily damaged and it's not super old, then probably it's just going to recycle, because it definitely, mold is something we can't have. So mold does not work. And I do recycle. I mean, books that come in that I know that they'll go to recycling because they've done their job. And one fellow, I went to his father's garage, and his books had been heavily used, lined and underlined and highlighted, and he'd written in all kinds of languages on these books. And then they'd been stored in a garage without proper heating and AC. And some water had gotten in. So there was a lot of damage, and they were beautiful. And I told the son, I said, these books have done their job. They've really been well loved and used. So sometimes it's just, we want to hear that, we want to know that they've been important. They've done their what they needed to do.
Yes, I absolutely. That's a really lovely way to put that. I know for myself, one of the things I told myself very early on is I would never deny myself books. So throughout my life, if I've wanted to buy a book, and of course I frequent the library a lot too, but if I wanted to buy a book, I've just always given myself permission to do it. That was one thing I was not going to edit out. But as you can imagine, I have ended up with quite a collection. And so yes, in an effort to pare that back, I have a lot of books. So I may be visiting that bin. That is a wonderful, wonderful project for sure.
The other sort of spinoff on that is that those books that don't assess, that are really good, like, maybe life-changing books that would be a penny online. We have carts that are on the front porch that we put all these great books on for $1 and $2. And I feel that's community service too, because they're really good books. You will not find a how do you cook gourmet in a microwave on those carts. They just won't, it won't be there. It will not be there. So they've been culled, and they're good books. They're for children, and they're inexpensive. And I love that, because then it's accessible to anybody. We also have a hiker's books, we call them when you're traveling light. And those books are out all the time, and they are pay what you will. And that is kind of to anyone in our community that needs books. Books should not be about where you are in life. Right. They should be accessible to everybody. So that's really the side benefit to the Rescued Book Program, is that these great books are available on the carts out here.
Well, that's so amazing. So many ways that you guys are really, giving back to the community, and like you said, making books accessible for people. Now, I wager a guess that you are sort of one of those people like myself that there's just no replacement for a physical book. Mm-hmm. But in your line of work, how has sort of this evolution of e-readers and all of these things like impacted booksellers?
I love that question, because booksellers, I'm an entrepreneur, and I've done a lot of other types of businesses, from data quality software to sales, underwriting, to all kinds of things, farming, So I think that's the bookseller world. When I came into it about 15 years ago, I was shocked at how none of these people make any money. These businesses were all in the red. No one had an economically sustainable business. And I'm like, this is ridiculous. You can't actually, that doesn't make any sense. And obviously the impact of that is that we've lost those places in our communities. Amazon, as far as who's really impacted the most, it would be things like Amazon. And where the convenience of, I need to just get it, and I'm going to get it this way, and that's fine. But where that price is paid is in your community. Do you have that resource anymore? Do you have that place to go to for story, for all the other things that booksellers bring to you, which is new authors, events, conversations? A lot of what we do is out in the community. I like I said, I host those conversations in breweries. We did a speak out at the farmers market with Project Rose, where we let people bring words to public places. What we used to do, have conversation. These are important elements, and they're not coming from the Amazons out there. They may say, okay, I'll give you a donation back. Here's my Smile campaign. But, our approach right now, we kind of have a sassy little program, and I'm doing a holiday give back. And so if you find a book, we're actually saying, go browse Amazon, find your book, and then tell us to get it for you, and we'll match their price. First of all, we'll just deal with that right off. We'll match that price. And if you want to pay retail, which is what the book was sold for, or said it was going to sell for, we'll put half of the proceeds and we'll send it to our partner nonprofit. So you're going to give back to the community. And we'll do it in a fun way of just saying, well, thank you, Amazon.
Yes, I love that. That's a wonderful idea. So everybody that, are getting books for yourself on Amazon or buying books for other people, there's no excuse. If you're going to match the price and, all of that, there's really no excuse. And, I think it's sort of like, there's an experience of going into an actual bookstore and
Yeah.
browsing and picking. And like you said, having a conversation with
Yeah.
the staff there. And there's more to it than just, clicking a button and pay now and that's it. there's
Right.
there's an experiential element to that I think is lost, obviously, if we're just doing everything online. And like you said, it's really an investment into the community because you're out doing community events and rescue book program and all of these things. And so, yeah, definitely encourage everybody listening or watching, go to Stone Soup Books to get your books. There's no excuse. They've thought of everything, in terms of being able to give these to you guys. So,
As
and
far
just
as the ebooks and the things like that, though, the readers, you did ask that question,
yes,
and I didn't. I kind of went around to this other place.
that's okay.
I have to only say, I think it's great. There's a place for all of that.
Yes.
Holding a book in your hand and being able to, there's something tactile, there's something sensory about it. There's a way it engages somebody. Like if you're out at a park, they might look at it and ask you what you're reading. I mean, it's just more approachable, and it can get wet. You can sit in the South River and read a little poetry and get inspired by the nature around you. And it's not a device that's going to reflect horrible things into your eyes. We need a break. We need a break from technology,
Yes.
So it's a really nice thing. And when you deal with antiquarian books, you're dealing with books that maybe they were, published in 1800s, 1700s. They're beautiful. They feel really good. Some of them may be signed by the author. So that's a lot of what we find too, is just they're very special books.
Yes. Now, just to clarify, people can also get new books there, or those books that you order?
Yeah, we have new books and antiquarian used books.
Okay,
yep.
perfect.
And we order any book that is out there.
Yes, yes. Well, you've touched on it quite a bit throughout the conversation, but just to focus on it a little more, people have lots of options of where they can open their businesses. Why was Waynesboro the place that you wanted to be?
I think other people who ask these questions, I always say I'm a little addicted to Waynesboro. So I'm not sure you could take that as it is. There's something about Waynesboro. It has a great draw. There's so much opportunity here. When you look around and you see all of the people who were inspired entrepreneurially to come, they didn't do great things to the river. They didn't do great things sometimes to the environment. We get new opportunity, and it's still here. There's a lot of green space. There is a river that runs through it. There's beautiful parks, and the Greenway is kind of a testament to that, I think, of people who take pride back, when everything changed and the downtown didn't look the same. We don't like change, and it makes us feel uncomfortable, but change is happening all the time, and we're in a time of enormous change. So changing we're surrounded. I've got this mural on our building, and then I have a mural that was done of, on this Apple storage building that's enormous. And I wish I could tell you the artist. I feel bad about that. Niels. It's amazing to hear the response people have for that. And I've dealt with, in Waynesboro, tourists who've come to the community, hikers who've done the Appalachian Trail. This is a place that they come back to. Right. This is the community that they really love. And it's because it has this amazing feeling of accessibility. You've got a downtown area with parks that are all walkable. You can walk to the library. You can walk to the grocery store. It's just got a great feel.
Right. Yes. I interview a lot of business owners and entrepreneurs and business leaders, and, they echo some of the same things that you were saying. And then they're also, and, nothing is perfect, but there also seems to be a real sense of community among the business owners. Like if you needed something, being able to reach out to somebody else in the community, there seems to be like a culture of that I think makes it really, really special as well. So as an entrepreneur, and you've been at this for a long time. What is your best advice for other people that are thinking of going into business for themselves?
um, yeah, right. I think the longer you're at it, the more you just go, I don't know. I mean, really, the best answer is I don't know. Don't let somebody tell you something like that's the gospel truth.
Yeah.
I think the biggest thing is I love the book by Elizabeth Gilbert. It's Big Magic. And this idea that these ideas are floating around and they kind of run into people. And so if you embrace that idea, do it. Look into it. Don't just say, I can't do it. It's coming at you. It's coming from somewhere. And if it's something you love, that's the other piece is the world, I think, is better when we do things we love instead of just doing something that, and granted, we all have to pay the bills. So it can't be something that's running you in the red. It has to pay the bills. And guess what? Businesses, sort of like Stone Soup, they change because if they don't pay those bills, you have to look that in the face too. And you have to change, and don't be afraid of change. That's the other thing that we're constantly like, oh, we've got to keep it this way. No, we've got to analyze our businesses every year.
Right.
And just determine, is that working? Is that not working? Have the circumstances changed that I need to change with that? It's not easy. So it's patience and perseverance are kind of your big ones, and listening. And if you let that idea go, then let it go. It's okay. That too is okay. Right. But acknowledging that's sort of the place we operate in.
Yes. Yeah. It brings to mind the fact that we all, ready or not, had to do at least some sort of pivoting over these past couple of years with dealing with this worldwide pandemic. And so I think that's a really good point, because I think sometimes people get stuck in like, this is how it has to be. And if you can't sort of change with the times or pivot or add things or, edit things, then you're a lot of times going to be left behind. So really, really great advice there. So
my only thing I'd add to that, just because I think about something after
yes,
and that's terrible because I should be listening better, is research it, then seek out economic development resources. There's all kinds of folks to talk to, whether they're retired, maybe they're in the same business. There's a lot to competition, but there's a lot more to collaboration. Yes. And most small business owners are collaborative. Yes. They have to be, because we're, fighting against, not fighting, but we don't have a marketing arm of Walmart or Amazon or any of those places. So we're collaborative, we're creative. That's who you speak to. So if you have an idea, go research it, talk to people.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. So this is probably going to be my favorite question of the whole podcast, but I wanted to see if you could tell us maybe your top 3 favorite books or authors and why they're your favorite.
Oh my gosh. That's terrible. All right.
It's so hard to decide.
When I sell books, the thing I do is I say, because that's one of my favorite things, is to kind of match books to people.
Yes.
And so I never tell them what my favorite is. I always say, what was the last good book you read? Yes. Because if they will kill themselves on the word favorite. They will try to come up with something amazing, to say, this is my favorite. This represents who I am. So I'm going to take your question and morph it into probably the last 3 books that I've read that I've just been moved by. Because that's kind of, I'd start with probably as a kid, Fog Magic and Secret Garden by Frances Hodgkin Burnett. And I don't know who read Fog Magic. I should know, but those 2 were really favorites of mine. But right now, one that here, I'll just grab it.
Okay. grabbing a book off the bookshelf. What
Yeah.
do we have here?
So this one, it's a author that I actually interviewed for Books and Brews. His name is Padre Gotoma. And the book is In the Shelter, Finding a Home in the World.
Ooh.
That was my first Zoom interview when we went into pandemic. So we weren't able to go in the brewery. And Padre is from Ireland. And we were going to have him at JMU area. He was a visiting professor at Eastern Mennonite University.
Nice.
Or he was visiting. He's a theologian and a poet. He does the On Being podcast, the poetry podcast, and he reads poetry. This book talks so much about story and how important story is, and how it actually is all of those things that connect us. And I interviewed him, to leap into Zoom in the unknown world, and then to have him be in Ireland and be so amazing. I was like, how is this going to be possible? Why did they throw this at me? But what a great conversation, what a great book. Really takes us into how we connect with people and with books and story, especially in times that are difficult. Having to do what he's done and work with the Irish and the Northern Ireland and all of the hostility, and trying to bring people to the table to have conversation. It's something that it's a good thing to lean into,
right?
Especially in our times. Oh, Grace. I'm trying to think of the ones that are floating through my mind.
I know a big one for me was Wild by Cheryl Strayed. I love that book. I just finished rereading for who knows how many times To Kill a Mockingbird, and that book always gets me. And then one that I read actually when I was quite young that made a big impact was Man's Search for Meaning. So those are some of my top ones.
I just pulled that one, sending it to my nephew. I send out, books to all of the family, of course, and that's exactly the one I'm sending to him because he's in that stage. And I think this is a time for you to read this book. So yeah.
Oh, yes. Wonderful, wonderful book. All right. Well, you can find any book that you would like by going through Stone Soup, either visiting the store or ordering from them. The Rescue Book Program, take all of your beloved books that you are passing on to someone else there. And then how do people find out more information if they would like that? And what are the store hours?
They can go to www.stonesoupbooks.net.
Okay.
Currently our store hours are, we're sort of seasonal because we just reopened in a way, in April. And so, I'm here, I say by chance or by appointment. So that's also an option. And we have some other folks who are doing book selling here for us. Thursdays, we're here 2 to 6, and then Friday and Saturday, 10 to 4 currently. And just kind of watch it. Our hours will probably shift with the seasons as it gets darker earlier. We're looking at potentially having some writer or reader workshops in the winter. So we have events on our website, different things that we're doing, and possibly some summer workshops with children for reading and writing, since we have this great play space next to us. We've had some folks who've talked about doing some hands-on workshops with planting and gardens and things like that. So a lot of different types of things that we're just pondering and potentially offering. So
nice. That's all amazing. So people, make sure that you're checking out the website regularly, popping in Facebook. Yes. All of those socials. I
have a lovely person who does all social media and so that's why I didn't even mention it, but she's doing a fantastic job on Facebook, on Instagram, and all of those things. So check them all out.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Yes. And just, as one book lover to another, thank you so much for what you're doing, and all the community outreach, and just being a place where you can go in, and find those beloved book friends, ones that you know of and ones that you haven't quite met yet. So thank you so much for what you're doing.
Well, thank you for sharing your favorite books and your story about books. And I appreciate you giving us time and talking about this.
Wonderful. Well, thank you. And anybody that wants to learn more about businesses in Waynesboro, you can visit waynesborobusiness.com. You can also read about entrepreneurs in Waynesboro at growwaynesboro.com. And please make sure to subscribe to the Visit Waynesboro YouTube channel, Waynesboro at Work on Spotify. And that way you can keep up with all of the new episodes that we will be posting. Thank you so much for listening. Take care and be well.